of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to read our board norms. Debate, commentary, and discussion are healthy and open. Listening and speaking are equally important, and both should be done with respect and consideration. Focus is on students and our schools, not politics. Assume best intentions in all discussions. May I please have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, may I have a motion to consider our consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Stuttered for a minute. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we are up to public input. We have two people who have signed up. We have Mrs. Morallo. Hi.
Good evening. Good evening. Getting old, so I have to use the specs. Sorry about that. So this is a petition, and to the Rutland City Public Schools School Board. We, the undersigned, express our unwavering support for our Rutland City Public School Education Association bargaining team in the pursuit of a fair and equitable contract for the district's teachers. We believe their proposals provide for reasonable and fair compensation for the educators and go a long way toward making the district a place where teachers can share their expertise in helping every student from every family. As you know, negotiations for a new contract have been on hold since July 1st, 2024, since the school board is not willing to meet to discuss a fair contract. The REA is deeply concerned about the effects inflation has had on our community. An unsettled contract also makes it harder to attract and retain teachers who want to spend a career in Rutland schools. It is never too late to resume bargaining, as we urge the board to negotiate with a goal of fair compensation that values teachers and their collective skills, experience, and contributions. Current state, base pay at RCPS is lowest in all of Rutland and Addison counties, amongst the lowest pay for teachers in the state of Vermont. Lowest sick days in Rutland and Addison counties. K through 6 teachers amongst lowest for planning time in Rutland and Addison counties. Prolonged and contentious negotiations this spring will have an impact on student learning, implementation of Portrait of a Graduate, and add to the continued demoralization of staff. We know our negotiators are eager to reach an agreement that is fair to our teachers and good for our schools, our community, and most importantly, our students. And it is signed by the Rutland City Public School teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Ms. Apriliano. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laura Apriliano, and I'm a proud educator and parent in Rutland City Public Schools. I teach 2nd grade at Northeast, and my kindergartner attends school in this district. Next year, both of my children will be part of the Rutland school system. What many in our community may not know is that my roots in Rutland run deep. My maiden name is Daly, and my grandfather, Jack Daly, was not only the former mayor of Rutland and lieutenant governor of Vermont, but he was also a history teacher at Rutland Junior High School. He believed deeply in the strength of this community and its ability to come together for the greater good, and in the power of education to shape a better future. This past fall, many of our school and city leaders traveled to Japan to celebrate the long-standing sister-city relationship between Rutland and Hanamaki. What some do not realize is my grandfather, as mayor 38 years ago, was the one who started this tradition. He dedicated his life to building bridges between people and strengthening this community. Growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. My grandfather, an educator, fully supported this dream. He often told me to explore the world, but to always come back and give back to the community that had given me so much. I took his advice to heart, and after teaching in other areas, I returned to Rutland to serve the students of this city. Every day, I give my all to my students, going above and beyond to provide meaningful learning experiences for every child at Northeast. Yet, in my 20 years as an educator, I have seen the demands on teachers continue to grow without the necessary support or recognition. Being asked to show up every day without a fair contract is not only demeaning, it is unnecessary. I can't help but think about how disappointed my grandfather would be to see the school community he loved so deeply divided like this. He understood that a strong city is built on a foundation of respect, collaboration, and an investment in its future. Right now, that foundation is cracking. The foundation of any strong and effective school system is its teachers. We are in the classrooms every day, ensuring that students not only meet academic standards, but also develop the skills, confidence, and curiosity they need for lifelong success. However, without a fair and secure teacher contract, we risk losing the very professionals who dedicate themselves to this vital work. A contract is more than just a document. It is a commitment to stability, respect, and the value of the work we do. It ensures that educators receive the support, compensation, and working conditions necessary to continue providing high-quality instruction. Without a contract, we face uncertainty about our professional futures, about our ability to sustain our own families, and ultimately about the quality of education we can provide to our students. I want my own children to receive a high-quality education, which is why I have chosen to send them to Rutland City Public Schools. I work alongside some of the most dedicated and skilled educators I have ever known, but my colleagues are leaving, not because they don't love teaching, but because they are not valued by this school board. Throughout negotiations, teachers have continued to show up for students every day. We have continued to create engaging, thoughtful, and rigorous learning experiences while navigating increasing responsibilities and challenges. But dedication alone cannot sustain a workforce. A strong teacher contract is not just about educators. It is about ensuring that every child has access to consistent, experienced, and committed teachers in their classrooms. This community deserves schools that attract and retain passionate, skilled educators. Our students deserve consistency and high-quality instruction from teachers who feel valued and supported. Investing in teachers is investing in the future of our children, our schools, and our community as a whole. Teachers deserve more. We deserve respect. We deserve a fair contract. I urge this board to recognize the value of its educators, not just in words, but in action. The strength of the community is reflected in how it treats those who shape its future. Rutland has always been a place of resilience, collaboration, and pride. Let's honor that legacy by ensuring that our teachers are supported, respected, and fairly compensated. Teaching has changed dramatically over the past 40 years. When my grandfather was in the classroom, his focus was delivering content. Today, teachers are expected to do far more. We are not just educators. We are counselors, advocates, mentors, and caretakers. We support students through increasing behavioral challenges and mental health crises while meeting ever-growing academic demands. We adapt to evolving curricula, standardized testing pressures, and technological advancements, all while ensuring that every child feels seen, supported, and capable of success. The weight of these responsibilities has never been greater, yet the respect and support for teachers have not kept pace. This is not just about us, it's about our students, our families, and the future of Rutland. A fair contract is not a privilege, it is a necessity. It is a commitment to the educators who dedicate their lives to this work and to the students who rely on us every day. Let's come together and do what's right, not just for our schools and educators, but for the children who are counting on us to build a strong, stable foundation for their future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Amelia, our student update, our student rep update.
Stafford is excited to announce that on Wednesday, March 5th, we inducted 28 new members into our National Technical Honor Society chapter. Special thanks to our advisors, Melissa Patterson and Melissa Thies, for the outstanding job they did in planning and organizing the application process, ceremony, reception, and chapter events. Our Tech Exploratory program will be hosting student visitors this week. We are thrilled with the wonderful interest in this program and currently have 35 applicants for 16 seats. Letters went out last week to current sophomores and juniors regarding the status of their application to Stafford next year. We will begin inviting current freshmen that have submitted applications to visit for the next 12 seats we currently have available where there is not already a wait list. At this time, we are 95% full for next year with wait lists in 9 of our 14 programs. Rutland Middle School just finished a week with our resident artist, Ramiro Devaro Comas. The mural, which spans our cafeteria, represents all of the Portrait of a Graduate classes. Stop by and check it out. On Thursday, our 7th grade is hosting a STEM fair from 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. They're excited to showcase all of their hard work. Also on Thursday, our 8th graders have their accumulating mock legislature assembly to wrap up their Democracy in Action unit. We hosted the Green Mountain District Music Festival on Friday. We had students from across the state participating in band, string, jazz, and choral rehearsals throughout the day. This event ended in a great performance on Friday evening. We'd like to give a huge shout out to our music department for all the work that went into this event. Rutland High School was pleased to host the American Red Cross for Blood Drive this week. Thank you to student government and advisors Elizabeth McReynolds and Tegan Kirk-Elkin for organizing and arranging this opportunity to support our community. RHS hosted the first of a number of Music in Our Schools concerts last night. The bands from RIS, RMS, and RHS all performed to a packed house at the high school gym and showed off their impressive musical skills. There was a Star Wars theme, and Darth Vader even made an appearance. Mark your calendar. The Global Studies and STEM Fair is scheduled for March 20th at 6 p.m. at Rutland High School. Juniors and seniors will present their capstone projects. Sophomores will read their creative writing pieces and present their social studies projects. And freshmen will present their STEM projects, which this year are student-constructed bridges. The bridges will be tested to determine whose is the strongest.
I'm sorry, what time did you say that was?
6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have our pre-K, our through 2 school improvement plans and RIS school improvement plans.
Sorry. Very squeaky
Missed
floor.
something? Oh,
No,
sorry.
no, they couldn't. They couldn't hear you. 'Cause
Oh.
the squeaking of the floor on the way out. I think.
Gotcha, I can enunciate better.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Justine Rutland, principal at Northeast Primary School.
Christy Kaluti, principal at Northwest. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm in charge of this, and you want to be in charge of talking? Oh, perfect. All right.
So we wanted to share our demographic data with you as you learned about from the middle school and high school. So at Northeast, we currently have an enrollment of 165 students. We have 26% of our population identified for special education. 19% of students on educational support plans, so those are plans that after a student maybe has exhausted their tier 1 or core instruction, universal instruction, they maybe need a little extra support working with an interventionist. Those are students perhaps on an educational support plan, or maybe they need some additional behavioral supports. So we have EST plans for both behaviors and academics. Less than 1% at Northeast on Section 504, 2% MLL, and then about 4% of our students are experiencing homelessness.
And for Northwest, similar in terms of percentages, taking a look at our special education population, our EST. One thing we're trying to do between the schools is really align our MTSS system, which is our multi-tiered systems of supports, and when we're identifying students in need of support, so really trying to align between the two buildings, but similar demographics between East and West. So one of the things we did with our presentation is really align our work to the Portrait of a Graduate. We're doing that in everyday practice, but I think it's really nice for the community to see directly how what we do at the primary level works directly, because when folks think Portrait of a Graduate, they're thinking high school and things, but it really starts when students first enter into this world. So we wanted to show folks how we align our instruction and things to the Portrait of a Graduate.
And one thing between Northeast and Northwest that I know we've spoken about in the past is our emphasis on collaboration, not only between administrators, but between our grade level teams. And so this year, both schools have been working with Partners for Literacy and Learning. And so we've had some consultation on how to enhance and improve our instructional practices at the primary grade level. So our teachers engage in not only collaborative work time, but they also get some professional development from those consultants. And then we are, like Christy shared, working to tighten up and enhance our MTSS systems ahead of Act 139, making sure that we're reporting out on our students' performance on their benchmark screeners, and then really making sure that our teachers and our students our teachers have an understanding of some of the research-backed strategies that they should be using to teach our students, and so making sure that they're getting that support as well. If you want to add on about PLL.
Yeah, and one thing is really taking a deep dive at the data that we're collecting. So oftentimes we collect data all year long and really just look at it. We don't really have any actions. And one thing that we're really targeting is how to analyze the data. What does it mean, and how can we improve our practices based on the data? So I would definitely say the progress has been amazing. Like, the staff have responded really well to this professional learning. And just the conversations are so different. In the beginning, it was like very surface level, but now teachers are, taking a deep dive at their own instruction. One of the models that we've used at Northwest is we've kind of done a fishbowl protocol, and so we have a data team that meets monthly, and then we've been inviting the grade level teachers in to kind of observe how we're talking about the data, and then they're able to give their input on like, oh, this is how we're practicing it in the classroom and things like that. So the conversations are like very different than when I started 3 years ago. So it's been amazing to see the progress, and kudos to the teachers, because sometimes the feedback is really hard to hear. If you see students are not progressing, you can take it very personal. However, I would definitely say they're united and really moving the learning forward, especially in the area of literacy. That's been our target for the last few years, is just literacy. So that's
So oftentimes we reference Portrait of a Graduate and the character traits, but sometimes that can be hard for our families, for students, for teachers to try to put into terms for a primary age student. So up there on your slideshow is a screenshot of how our teams have spent several team meetings thinking about, at a time a student leaves the primary, Northeast primary or Northwest primary school, what skills do we expect them to have mastered or hopefully have mastered that align with Portrait of a Graduate? And then, as you can see, some examples of how teachers and ESPs would support students in achieving those milestones. So this is something that we've been working on across buildings, and our next step would be to bring our teams together so that both primary schools have a common understanding of a portrait of a primary learner.
So cute.
As you know, at all levels, we're always trying to foster a positive environment for both staff, students, and just our communities. We've implemented some trauma-informed practices. We have a lot of social-emotional support that our students need. One of the curriculums in terms of social-emotional learning is the SPOT curriculum. So we're piloting it at Northwest, and I think some of Northeast is dabbling with it. And it's just another way for students to identify how they're feeling, finding their spot. And there will be National Scribble Spot pretty soon, and that's really where you're just feeling a bunch of emotions. So we'll have like a National Scribble Spot party, and t-shirts will be made and things like that. But really collaborating, with our teachers, with our families. What do our families need? We send home surveys 3 times a year to get feedback. How are the families feeling? Are the children feeling safe at school? And those things, and we take those to heart. So we really do analyze every survey. So it's really important that families fill them out, or if they have any concerns, just reach out to the schools, because that's really, we're trying to build a very positive school culture and climate.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that, you've heard in several presentations from several schools over the last few years about the importance of restorative approaches, and so at the primary age level, really trying to teach our children the foundational aspects of that. And for us, that looks like circle keeping. So Northwest and RIS now for the past few years have done community block. Northeast started community circles this year, and next year we would like to ensure that we have community block partners. So that looks like the art teacher might partner with the kindergarten classroom, and they lead a circle together. And maybe a counselor partners with a second grade teacher, and every day that same community comes together and they start their day in circle. So at the beginning of the school year, the Northeast team received restorative training with Suffolk University and their Center for Restorative Justice, and they had published, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the framework Circle Forward, but it's a text to help guide circle keeping that we use across the district now.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Is that the same as morning meeting, or is it like a spin on it?
It's a spin, it's more of the circle, there's a centerpiece, there's a talking piece. It's less about, more like having the calendar part or going over the agenda. It's really
More about the community
happy to
connection.
see you,
Cool.
welcome, we're gonna start our day. There might be a question of, what's your rose or your thorn for today, or what color are you feeling, or with the SPOT curriculum, which spot are you feeling? But
Did
really
you
it's
have
the circle.
superheroes and something else come in to present as an assembly?
I think the middle school did that.
In middle school. Okay, great. We had that also, and it sounds very familiar to what they did. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
And one thing that Justine did mention, but I think it's really important. So the classroom teachers are assigned a community block partner, and it may be someone that their class doesn't really interact with. So like our SLP is partnered with a second grade classroom. So when those students see her across the building, everybody knows her now, versus students who just received IEP services. So it's really building a school-wide community that affects, and we started it from when the intermediate school did it, and it's just been one of the most positive things, definitely, that we've implemented.
So another big component for both primary buildings has been an emphasis on STEAM, which is applicable in the challenges that you might give a student. And we often talk about OZOBOTs and BBOTs and coding, but STEAM is much more, it's integrated into reading and science and other activities during the school day. So for example, you're looking at a picture of students working with BBOTs. So they're coding, they're practicing directionality skills and coding that BBOT to move through those, I think they might be like holiday pictures. And Northwest has a makerspace. We are using a maker cart. We are really at Northeast trying to prioritize how to get families engaged. So every other month we send home a family engagement challenge, and we provide the resources they might need. So back in January there was like a habitat challenge. So families were given cotton balls and tinfoil, and then at home they listened to a guest read aloud, and then they did this activity together and then sent in their challenges. And next school year, or this coming November, we're actually going to be bringing both primary schools together at the Rutland Recreation Center and expanding what our National STEAM Day looks like. So we're really excited to be having community partners and leveraging those resources for success.
I look forward to attending that event.
So we do have a video to show you of an example of what the family engagement challenge has been like at STEAM. So this is an example from the last year. These would have been pictures families sent in doing the challenge at home.
Oh, that's cute.
So happy. actually had 50 families participate in January, which was exceeded our expectations to have 40 families participate over the course of the year.
Oh, wow.
All right, our last slide is about community experiences and collaboration. We want to definitely thank our local partners and all the opportunities we've had here in Rutland City. We listed our key partners. We may, don't want to leave anybody off. However, we have a wealth of resources here in the city, and I think that it's really important to acknowledge that and get our students involved early. Just today, we were at the Paramount watching a school-wide movie, and so many of our students may not experience that. They've been so great to work with it, as like everybody else.
Yeah, and I just ditto. That's great.
About questions from us?
I have a simple question. What is Find Your Spot? What is the spot?
So there's a whole range of different spots that students can identify with their emotions. So there's a red spot, blue spot, and so on that particular day, students like just talking about how they're feeling, their feelings really.
That makes perfect sense now that you said it. I feel so silly for even asking.
No. And one thing, if you ever want to stop by the school, like we have an amazing setup, and every spot has puppets and things like that. The kids are really responding well to the.
What was the thing you said in the beginning about it had to do with the spots, but it was like
Scribble.
Scribble spot?
I have that question too.
What is
Scribble spot?
I feel like I really relate to that. But what is,
We all have our scribble spot.
I feel like I'm on a scribble spot right now. But
Basically, you're not sure how to identify what motion you have.
what I
And
thought.
it's a cute little spot that's all colors, and you just scribbles.
all right, that's where I exist generally. Yep. Okay, that's cool. That's
Reminds me
great.
of anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's the language we use to the kids, and they'll tell
I
you.
love that. Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
that's really cool.
Scribble spot moment.
Yep. Sorry, I'm on my scribble spot. I love that.
You're like deregulated, like you're
Yeah,
just,
right?
you just,
Exactly.
Oh, man.
That's how you're-
isn't that a big word I just used? Yeah, like, okay, all right. We're gonna put one in my house.
really cute.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Questions?
Great.
Well,
Thank you
so much
Thank
for
you.
such a
Thank
great
you.
report.
Stop by anytime and visit.
Yeah.
Some of the Gentian root. Kind of.
Hey, it's got Max.
It's just bitter. It's bitter.
I suppose so. Hi, Kara Corus, principal at the Intermediate School. Brought some friends with me so that we share a little piece for you. First, you can see those are our 4 expectations. Really embodies what it means to be RIS. And we have a little video. Like Christy and Justine just shared, there's so many opportunities that we have in Rutland that I was really fortunate to be able to share and have our students experience. Here's our demographics. We currently have 501 students enrolled at RIS. 27% of our population is on an individual educational plan. We have 20% are on an educational support plan and 5% on a Section 504 plan, which means we have like 52% of our population on some sort of plan. We have 6% that are designated as multi-language learners, and we also have 6% that are experiencing homelessness. And unfortunately with that number, those are the ones that we know about, and those are the ones that we can kind of track, but likely that number is higher, especially at any given time. So this just based on, I'm going to read it to you, but it really says that given all that we do on a day, on a trimester, the faculty meeting, grade level meetings, we are always trying to just do better. We want to make sure that we are meeting everyone's needs. What can we do to help support our lower learners as well as our higher learners? So that's always our goal and the lens that we're looking through. We also are going to tackle some of the traits, and first is teaching and learning.
So this is one of the ways we've been critical thinking communication. In order to help with this, our teachers meet weekly to focus on collaboration and alignment. So they actually meet together as grade level teams or content area teams. So they also meet with our coaches in math and ELA to support kind of the rollout or continued rollout of our math program and calibrating and working on assessments and data collection and analyzing data. We are also working on aligning our grade level common local assessments and trying to bring consistency across the grade level as far as content and what's being taught and assessed. And we utilize data informing our decisions, whether it be for students with behaviors or students with academic needs. We have monthly data meetings to look over family surveys or behavior data or FastBridge data, and then teachers also utilize their FastBridge data and assessments to help create interventions, whether in the classroom or in our special educators. Our special educators also use them to customize interventions for the students with it.
Our school fosters empathy and integrity through trauma-informed practices and restorative behaviors, create a supportive environment for all students, counseling social emotional learning lessons, while school-wide assemblies and our community blogs strengthen connection. PBIS celebrates achievement and promotes positive behavior, earning recognition as a distinguished school by the Agency of Education. Our success stories and data will serve as best practices for other Vermont schools.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Well deserved.
Yes. Jane Richards and Jenna Whitehorn, both assistant principals. Next, Ed Deckin is our Director of Student
Hi,
Engagement.
everybody. Thank you again for having us. Excuse me, so we have so many great resources available to our staff and students. I think you heard a little bit about the BBOTs with the primaries talking about that, a little robotics competition, and they get to participate in. The POD up there stands for Positive Opportunities for Development, so that is a space where our children that may be a little dysregulated at the moment or are regulated but go for a nice check-in. They get some feedback on their progress and how the day is going, and it's a little bit of a check-in, check-out system with some adults that really care about keeping them on track. We have hired a tutor to come in and support some of our kids in ELA with having to have one of our interventionists go back into the classroom. We had lost that service, and so bringing in some tutoring has allowed us to try to bridge that a little bit smoother. We have an SSIP team coming in from the state. This is pretty exciting as somebody who taught math for the the district for a long time. And that state, that agency is coming into the school to look at how we are reaching our students with mathematics, especially some of our struggling students, and finding how that bridge between special education, intervention, and classroom and layer 1 instruction kind of all forms together to support all of our kids. We've already had them come in and do some observations of our teachers, special educators, paraeducators, and just kind of get a little global picture. And then they've been providing and working with us on some feedback of how to strengthen what we're doing in our practice there. We have a bunch of clubs listed up there. I think our student council and our community service club really reach out into our community and provide some tremendous opportunities for kids to actually experience and get out and be part of something a little bit larger. And then our tapestry program and boys and girls clubs are something that our kids are able to access beyond the school day, extend their day. With collaboration, as you heard Christy and Christine talk, we have so many amazing businesses that partner with our schools, and just a few are listed here. I want to speak about one of them in depth a little bit. In particular is our Vermont Adaptive Program. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with that. I always knew of it, but I was able to participate in going to Pico and snowboarding and skiing with some of the kids. And I always, I don't want to say it was lost, but I didn't really understand it until I participated, and I saw the difference that it makes with our children and the way that program, I mean, we're taking some of our most vulnerable students and they're going with someone that they don't know and following directions from someone that they don't know, and I was just like jaw dropped several times watching this, and then of course I got to hit a little jump on my snowboard. What just happened? It melted down and then best, every day. So, just those types of connections and being able to see their teachers and administrators in different ways, tremendous. Shop with a Cop. Darn Tough Socks gave every one of our students a pair of socks this year.
That's so cool.
And they're really nice socks. Spartan Arena, we've gone over there. They posted us for ice skating. Again, really trying to bring the entire school together and as a community, and then connect that further out into our larger community.
Oh, is that what that is? So cute.
That's a great picture.
That's awesome.
Appreciate good socks.
Yeah, they're so good.
What is SSIP?
Systemic State Improvement Plan.
Say that again.
Systemic State Improvement Plan.
Thank you.
Those services and that support is at no cost. So the folks coming in, giving observations and feedback, and it's no cost for the students.
Wow, nice. That's cool. Thank you.
In the presentation, there was a lot of talk about data, and I would really like to see some of that data or hear some feedback on what that data might be, so we can kind of know what kind of data you're talking about, that you're collecting, just to get some results on that. And I don't know, it kind of strikes me a little bit because we are talking about, there's percentages about, of kiddos that are maybe on programs or even homeless and things like that. And I'd like to hear some other statistics of kids that are excelling or moving out of those areas and improving. I'd like to hear what those are too next time.
I would just like to applaud the involvement with the community and giving children the opportunities that they would probably, or some of them would never, ever have. You know, it's hard for parents who are working. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be destitute, but when parents are both working, you just can't always bring kids to these activities. And I think that is a confidence builder for the kids, and leads them to be better students. So I would applaud that and all the work you're doing.
Definitely. I had a question about, Ed, you mentioned that an interventionist had to go into the classroom. How many interventionists does that leave?
1.
For 100 students on ESTs? Wow. How does that work? I'm very familiar with the MTSS process, and that does not seem at all feasible.
So we had 2.
Okay, which also is like, yeah, not enough.
So we had 2, and because we only had 2, to get kind of creative with how we prioritized in their day, focused mostly on supporting new teachers in their instruction and supporting them. They both sat on part of our EST team.
Of course, yeah.
And helped to prioritize some small groups, but it's difficult.
Absolutely. I wonder, with all of the MTSS coming down from the state, that you have to maintain tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, that doesn't seem logistically possible. And I wonder if somehow we could work in another interventionist position, or 2, or 3, or 4. Yeah, 6, 7, 12, yeah, sure. I'm just, that doesn't seem like we're setting you up for success with one interventionist. And that seems to me like, as a classroom teacher, that seems to fall onto the classroom teacher, which is completely unfair. Their job should be to focus on tier 1 instruction and not be strapped with a tier 2 instruction. Or I'm not sure how the special ed department is looking either. Is that something that would help our students at RAS?
I do think it would help.
Okay.
So for next year, we are looking, we have 2, and then we're looking at reconfiguring so that we can sneak out a 3rd one.
That would be good. That still gives each one about 33 kids, which is unattainable. I urge, if we can have any part in adding an interventionist, or I know that this is a critical role in our students' lives. I think as school boards, we should be supporting our students and our teachers so that they don't feel strapped across that, and especially because this is coming from the state, right? Like, this is something that we need to uphold for our students, for our teachers, for our community. So please be in touch, and if there's anything I can do or we can do, please let us know.
Can I ask what the challenge is? Why is it we don't have the funding for more? Is that, or is it we don't have the applicants? What's to fill that role?
So we were, when we lost a teacher mid-year this year, we advertised, we just weren't able to fill that position mid-year. And
because there weren't people? Okay. There weren't, okay.
Qualified people applying. Again, that was
It's really hard to hire a qualified educator mid-year.
Yeah, mid-year is tough.
Definitely played a role. Beyond that, we have X number of staff that we have to figure out who's going to teach what, and to keep our class sizes at what we would like to see, depending on grade level, we're like 16 to 21. In order to do that, we needed the interventionists in a classroom role. So
I think the trade-off is our class sizes are pretty low.
Yeah, which is great.
And Marisa, if I could just add, we have used our title funding a little differently to add
mid-year MTSS coach specifically
I saw
for
that.
the intermediate, middle, and high school to look at our system.
And I think Lindsay's going to be great in that
So that
position.
we
Yeah.
can make some recommendations moving forward, both at the administrative table that is needed in terms of our resources to work to have a better, more robust system that we felt right now was operating fairly well at our primaries, but we needed to do some revision. So we are actively working on that and looking at how we're using our resources within our schools to assure that we're able to comply with all of that. So,
excellent.
So I just want
It's
everyone
happening.
to know that that is something we do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Moving to our strategic plan update.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Pam and I are here to give a strategic plan update. We did our mid-year update in January, which was much more in-depth and thorough, and so we're coming back with some additional information related to some of the specific things we talked about.
I'll interrupt for just a second. I have to say, with all of these school plans related to the strategic plan, I feel like there's just so much happening in our buildings that support the strategic plan that, like, what we're giving you is like a tiny snippet, because we're talking about committee work, but the real work is really already happening, which you've been hearing about.
Yes, so I'll start with teaching and learning. I'm going to give a couple little updates. The district teacher leader team, so all of our teacher leaders this year are serving on one of our strategic plan teams. We also have several additional staff members that are contributing to the work in those teams as well. We have redistributed our work into 4 specific subgroups. There is a team working on our portrait of a graduate. They're looking at the trades, unpacking them. Where are we teaching them? How can we assess them? What are some look-fors for administrators in future years when they visit classrooms? We have a team working on a schedule and time audit. So how are our students using their time across Rutland City Public Schools? And we're comparing that to other schools in the region. And also the administrative team is looking at how are our teachers using our time and what might be needed to support different work happening throughout the district. How could we look at our master schedule and make adjustments? So there's some long-term planning in that. We have an MTSS district team that is newly formed, and our MTSS coach is leading that work. We are looking at our MTSS systems across all of our buildings and reviewing district data and systems. And we have a team looking at assessment. And they are really looking at this point to create a glossary of terms to support a common understanding across our schools. Sometimes the high school uses terminology that might be interpreted differently at the intermediate school or vice versa. So we're really looking very high level. We've also been able to secure funding through our title grants to pay for summer work for interested teens to continue to do that assessment work and make that realignment and revision when they have some concentrated time to work on that without all of the other things happening through the year. Charlene, we talked about data, and right now I'm just going to give you kind of a high level. The administrative team is in the process of completing a data inventory. This is something that I spoke about briefly last month. We are required to complete a data inventory. We are in process with that right now. We started that in February. We do a data inventory for the district, and then each building has a component of that data inventory, and we use that to build our continuous improvement plans, which is what schools are reporting on now. But all those continuous improvement plans with goals for each school do come to the board as well. So I don't have all the data to show you tonight because we're in the process of reviewing those. But if you look at the list, we are asked to provide data on all of these areas, and some of this has been revised based on an audit that the state of Vermont had through monitoring of federal grants. So all of this is connected to our grants, and any investment we make in our grants has to be connected to our data inventory, which shows the need for it and a goal for each school. Many of the things you heard from our schools in the last 2 meetings are things that we strategically use some of our title grant money to help fund. And so we also do a district review of some broader areas and look at specific things called out in different title funds. So what are the impacts on students experiencing homelessness and needs of MLL students? Those are part of Title I, for example. Looking at well-rounded educational needs, safe and healthy schools, and effective use of technology are part of Title IV. Our professional development needs and staff recruitment are connected to Title II. So we have to do an analysis of all of that. And yes.
What is well-rounded education?
Well, if you look at the Title IV guidelines, it's basically anything that we're not required by law to provide to students that we think would help benefit students in experiencing a well-rounded education. Some examples are artist in residence that has been at the intermediate and middle school, help to provide a well-rounded education for those students by integrating art and math through this special kind of experience. We are able to fit a lot of things under well-rounded education, and it's a nice benefit of Title IV that we hope stays for many years.
Thank you.
I just have a question regarding the homelessness. How does that impact the school and the child's behavior and learning ability?
Well, I think that it's hard to tie a direct correlation that some of what we might see for the needs of the students are directly because they are experiencing homelessness. But as you can imagine with any student, what they experience outside of the school day certainly carries over into what they experience in the school day. Students that experience homelessness have certain rights and protections under McKinney-Vento law, but the reality is that it looks different ways at different grade levels. We have students in our community that are sleeping in cars, even now, or in campers. We have unaccompanied youth at the high school level that might be couch surfing or in different places. So as you can imagine, if you're not sleeping well, or if you're cold or you're tired, that's going to impact your ability to access your education. And sometimes when you're not ready to learn, it might impact your behavior or other kinds of needs. So we do work to wrap services around students and work with community partners. This morning I was actually on a meeting with some other homeless liaisons and our some of our pre-K partners around the impacts they're seeing in pre-K. Under Title I, we are required to set aside some of our title funding to help fund transportation for students to ensure educational continuity. We also write investments to help support needs for students to access for warmth, for clothing. We have students that look for supports like doing their laundry at schools. So we really try to support and ensure that students have the best ability to come in and be able to access learning. But I think we can all imagine that there are lots of factors that can impact a student's ability to do that, especially if they are experiencing homelessness or have some other things going on outside.
I'm going to give you a few wellness updates. You'll remember that this year, 3 of the strategies that we're working on are making sure we have a cohesive, consistent response to social emotional needs in our pre-K to 12 system, promoting work-life balance and healthy lifestyles healthy lifestyle choices for our staff. And then the third strategy that we're working on this year is promoting and addressing equitable access to co-curricular and evening events. So I'm going to just give you a couple of updates that we've done since our January presentation. So in our promoting practices and protocols that encourage a work-life balance, you'll recall that we did a survey with our staff, and as a result, the committee worked on creating with our community partners a Rutland City Public Schools discount card so that folks, all of our employees have access to be able to get discounts at various local businesses that will help to support and promote that work-life balance and healthy lifestyle choices. That committee is also looking at a structure to continue the work forward in subsequent years so that the work doesn't just stop this year. And so they have some creative ideas of how to keep that moving forward. They're also working on creating kind of a litmus test or an assessment, a quick assessment that we can do periodically throughout the year to kind of monitor how our staff is feeling and so that we can respond as needed and look for trends in data to see if there are times of year that are particularly stressful and to be able to provide support accordingly. Another one that I'll report on tonight is promoting participation and access to co-curricular and school events. The committee started with a survey for our K-2 parents about what it's like to access evening events. We had, I would say, a minimal amount of parents participating in the survey. I don't have the percentage, but it was roughly around 30 families. The results were that they feel that the communication from our primary buildings is exceptional, and there really isn't barriers that were identified in attending evening events. There was an idea to stagger participation in K-2 events, so like if they're having a craft night, that it's not everyone coming together at one time, but maybe staggered to be able to provide parking even. But just so that way it's not so overwhelming in such a large group. Their next step is they have created a survey to address the same issues for parents and students, grades 3 through 6, so that yes, we're getting the parent input, but we're also getting the student voice in there. They are also doing an internal audit, working with Mike Norman to talk about our activities and events, our activities and athletics, to talk about what are some potential barriers that we can even identify without having to reach out to a survey. I know families might be feeling saturated with surveys. So that's the wellness piece. Any questions about that?
I have a question quickly about just the committee. Is it made up of like different like from different schools?
Yes.
Or, okay.
So all of these committees, the teaching and learning, wellness, and resources, they're all made up of teachers, administrators, paras from across the district. The teacher leaders that we have are all in different
So everybody can come with everybody from everywhere has a say, or at least put some input into the committee.
And then within each area, so I'll take wellness for example because I oversee that one. We have 3 committees within the overarching wellness that work on those 3 areas of focus.
And each school has their own system as well to continue the work sort of within the building. And they have different structures for how to do that. So we have kind of different levels of teams. We have a central office team that meets regularly to check in on progress. We do work monthly at our administrative cabinet meetings. Then we have our monthly teacher leader teams that come together, and buildings continue that work too.
Patricia couldn't be here tonight, and she oversees the Resources for Success Committee, so I'm going to do my best to represent that work. It's definitely been identified that there's a significant amount of overlap with the other committees of the teaching and learning and wellness with the Resources for Success. For example, we work in the wellness in our search to make sure that we have a cohesive and systematic approach to our social emotional learning. We were looking a lot about where are our resources in every building. Well, they were doing the same thing in their Resources for Success. So we've done some combining of work between the Resources for Success and the other committees. An area of focus for them has been communication, and they have used the survey results and input from the other committees to be able to make some decisions and move some things forward. As an administrative cabinet, we talked at our meeting last month about tools and procedures for communication and making sure that we have a consistent approach to our communication. Naturally, as it says right on the last bullet, everything that they're working on is to foster access, clarity, inclusivity, and engagement.
Great.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Olson?
I'm coming off a cold, so I apologize for the slow motion. I feel slow motion. So two things I wanted to talk about, and we're going to try to go quickly because we're trying to aim for a discussion after this meeting. First thing I wanted to say was I would like to thank the community for supporting our budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Deeply
Yes.
appreciate the support that this community gives the school system every year. I wanted to thank the school board and the finance committee for the work and the guidance that it gave us for the budget through the year. And I especially wanted to thank Ted Clementis and Jim Smith and the administrators at the business office. A lot of folks are involved in trying to get those numbers right. It takes a lot of work, so we appreciate all that.
Yeah.
So, but back to the community again. Thank you to the community for supporting us. And I was looking at a VSBA, VSA information document that came to us recently about the governor's proposals. I thought I'd try to continue with that a little bit, just to make sure we're staying up to date on that. A lot of things are happening pretty quickly in Montpelier. There's been a lot of hearings and testimony being given, so I want to make sure this board and this community understand what's being proposed. There are a number of different bills out there, proposals. I'm going to stick with the governor's right now. And so the governor and the Secretary of Education, Zoe Saunders, have gone around and they produced a bill that would outline what this proposal would look like, this transformation would look like. It's like almost close to 200 pages in detail. That came out about 2 weeks ago, and they've been testifying since. There are some simple aspects to it. It's nice and clear. For instance, one of the things they're proposing is moving the number of required school days from 175 to 180, so that not hard to understand. There's a lot of talk about whether there would be school closures in this consolidation, but that's not really mentioned in this bill. So that's not part of what this bill is about. That possibly could happen when and if these new governance structures are created. These different boards might decide that some schools might be too small and they could be closed, but that's not part of the bill right now. They've proposed consolidating the districts. I think we talked about this last time, from 119 school districts down to 5. They also talked about a new funding formula for financing education. They would say that base funding for every student would be $13,200, and they would include weights for specific needs for students. Okay, so like rural students or students in poverty. And then another big part of it is they're talking about taking the authority of the State Board of Education and shifting it to the Agency of Education under the Secretary. We just referenced a few minutes ago class sizes. They're talking about an average minimum class size that would require grades 4 through 12 to have an average ratio of 25 students to 1 staff member, 25 to 1. And I'll just say right now we're not that close to that number. And grades kindergarten through 3rd grade would have a ratio of 15 to 1. So that would be a significant change for a lot of schools across the state. There's some questions that the bill hasn't addressed. The foundation formula doesn't talk about. It does talk about maintenance, so it doesn't include in the number regular maintenance of buildings, but it doesn't doesn't address new construction. So how new construction would be addressed if schools needed to be built. That's not part of this. And it's not clear how collective bargaining would happen going forward. You could assume that these boards would address that, these newly created boards, but it's not in the bill right now.
I just had a question. The way I've kind of read some of it and some opinions on it, wouldn't that involve like a statewide pay scale for teachers, or and contracts would be all with the state as opposed to the districts?
Yeah, I've heard that discussed.
Okay.
I don't think it's in the bill, as far as I understand it, but that's a possibility that could come forward.
Okay.
They also, separate from this but related, they're talking about tech centers, and the AOE has proposed streamlining governance of CTE centers as well. They also are talking about a foundation funding formula that would use a weight of 1.3, so a little bit more weight for a tech center student. And they've talked about the governance structure being basically one district for the whole state for the 17 tech centers. I've heard also, interpretations of this saying that if the tech center part could go forward, if the other part doesn't. So so I think there are probably clearer plans, possibly, and clearer, more push for it to happen with tech centers.
Just a question on that, Bill. So does that mean that the tech centers are like under separate leadership or?
Right.
Okay, and there's no talk about downsizing the number of tech centers? Or?
I don't know, is Melissa here for that? Oh, Kate's here. Any talk about downsizing the number of tech centers? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
Okay.
There's a discussion about what about we follow or anything overseas.
Thanks. The VSBA has some concerns about how this would work. They're talking about, I think there are 900 or so school board members across the state. This would bring it down to 25. So definitely a change in the connection to the community. There's concern about changing the authority from state board to AOE, and concern about whether AOE has the capacity to manage that. The VPA, the Principals Association, also is concerned about the proposal and is urging kind of a slower process and maybe focusing on some of the smaller districts rather than this bigger approach. We've been talking about it regionally, and we plan to have a few discussions over the next week or two. And I think boards are also discussing it in different parts of this region. So there'll be more to come on that, but I just want to give you that short update so you have an understanding of what's being proposed anyway.
Bill, is there anything that we should be doing, from your opinion, to either prepare ourselves or educate ourselves to help you or to help Rutland City Schools?
Well, I think trying to stay as educated as possible is very helpful, because there's a lot coming very quickly, and it is hard to keep up with. Then there's some other proposals that are out there that, like there's one in the paper today that was discussed. So trying to keep yourself educated. I think there's going to be more discussion regionally about what could happen and how this might affect us. I think there's a desire to, at least I've heard some people regionally talk about trying to get ahead of this a little bit and say what works for us in this region, possibly, at least have that discussion. I don't know if there's consensus about what works for us, but I think we should be thinking of that. I think there's a lot of validity in the goals of what they're asking for, but how you get there is going to depend on what the community really wants. So, when I say community, I mean the local community and the statewide community.
To your point about keeping ourselves educated, the VSBA has a monthly legislative update, and if you register for it, you'll get a link to the recording afterwards. It's at noontime, it's a lunchtime, and they're pretty informative.
They're very good. Those agencies do a really good job of keeping their constituencies informed. It's worth your time if you want. Unless you want me to just give the 5-minute overview. Just gave it to you.
Thank you.
Well, it also it gives you instructions on how, if you want to contact legislature to talk about what our wishes are. the webinar addresses that too, so we all can even present a united front if we all send the same message. Okay, thank you. Moving on to committee reports. Our policy committee, Karen.
So the policy committee completed the following policy reviews on February 25th, 2025. And the policy 6440 regarding non-aligned employees, it updates to align with current practice and laws and revised based on legal counsel input and SRC input. Policy 6450 is related to workers' compensation, and that was just updates to align with current practices and laws, and that was also revised based on legal counsel input. Policy 7222 was screening of new student entrants, and there were just some minor edits, additions, grammar updates. Policy 7232 regarding non-resident students attending after-school or summer programs, and that was just some grammar updates. Policy 7250, students seeking admission, there was no change, it was just reviewed and the date updated. And that's all for first reading.
Okay. Any unfinished business?
You have to.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, we have to, okay, yeah, we have to. Got motion to move those policies to second reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to any unfinished business. Yes.
Well, I was going to make a motion for an executive session regarding the teacher's contract, but I understand from Superintendent Olson that that is already
That is
in
already-
place
Mhm.
for the executive session. Thank you.
Yeah. Any new business? Okay. I want to thank Courtney.
Yes.
Oh, man. Of your hard work across many committees.
Very nice. Grateful for the opportunity. Hopefully it won't be the last time you see me.
Yes.
Yes.
I hope not.
No.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of consideration of contract negotiations, the premature release of information regarding the subject which would place the board at a substantial disadvantage. We'd like to include Bill Olson, Bianca McKean, Pam Reed, Ted Plemenis, and Bill Mube.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.